let's start with this, and then you guys will take it away. It is actually not meant to be done correctly. We're not actually supposed to get it right. And I think when they handed me my little babies, I was like, oh, I'm going to get this so much better than my parents did. I mean, and I'll do this and this and this. And then you actually learn that it's set up, the game is rigged, that's not what you're doing. You're not getting it right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's probably true about peak performance everywhere. If you have you have a fixed idea of what peak performance is going to be, and you try and if you're rigid that way, it's always going to. I mean, it'll clearly block flow because the frustration level will get too high, but it'll block the performance as well, right?
And I think the whole thing is that what you learn is that if you come with the objective of like love and your best, and you sort of have to understand that you'll take it on the chin. Like you wonder that as a parent, you're like, when did I become uncool? My music stinks. I don't know some of this verbiage. And my kids will have stories about things that they don't like about me or the way that I did it. Once you can kind of have your peace with that, because that's your personal growth part, it makes it a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. It is, by the way, funny to think that there are people in the world who actually know Laird and Gabby and actually think you guys are uncool. It's funny to know that, right?
Yeah, my first question, Gabby, was actually going to be on that. So, obviously you and Laird are amazing figures in your own right. How within parenting, as successful, accomplished, well-known peak performers, have you tried, or maybe you haven't tried, but if you have, how have you tried to not kind of overshadow your children, allow them to be their independent selves and do their own thing?
This is an important question for anyone. Like, let's say someone listening is accomplished in any way, like you're a CEO, you're a business owner, whatever. Is Laird and I are parents. I was nursing my children and making oatmeal and talking about hard work and honesty and love and respect. And these are the messages in the house, right? But what I didn't understand, and both Laird and I came from, to some effect, certain dysfunctions in our own family lives. So you think as a parent, like, oh, I'm going to tell my kids, like, hey, it's just about you finding your own passion and, trying to have meaningful relationships and all this stuff. But what we don't take into account is what the outside world is communicating back to them all the time. Like, what are you going to do? And let's say I have a daughter, for example, who's big and strong. Are you going to play sports like your parents, right? And so it's an interesting thing and it goes back to also, we only control a piece of their story. It's this idea when someone says, oh, this spirit, this soul came in and it has its journey. That is a very difficult thing to realize and come to terms with. Because if you think I create a safe, clean home full of love and nurturing and encouragement, that will take care of everything. And to have the sensitivity that if you pursued heavily in your life in some weird way, that will negatively impact your child.
Have you found that traits that have led to your own success have translated into your parenting style in positive ways, or have there also been, things you've had to guard against?
I've had a tough learning curve, because I'll put it to you very simply. I'm what one would call a grinder. And, it's like a hammer, and I've hammered my way out of a lot of places and to a lot of places. And someone positioned it to me that now if parenting was like washing the windows, would you use that hammer? And so it's actually being willing on the fly to uncomfortably develop new tools. And also, this is actually whether you have children or not, it's letting go of old tools that we use for a past reality that we no longer need, and developing these new ones for the life and the present place that we're located at this very moment. And I think that as humans, we're really hard because we're like, hey, that hammer worked really good for me. I'll just keep doing that. And so I think that it's worked in my favor in certain ways, and certainly, you're adapting.
How do you catch yourself not from, stop yourself from using that hammer to wash windows, so to speak?
It's not that you catch yourself so much as they tell you. And then if you're smart, hopefully, and you're not too prideful or you're not too stubborn, you start to try to put it in play a little bit. Like you start to try to practice without them having to tell you. Usually it's a kid. So you're trying to encourage your kids to have a voice and their own point of view. And the flip side is that then they will freely use that against you and say, like, let me tell you what I think. And some of it is a form, and I don't mean this in a bad way, it's just manipulation. They're trying to leverage you. That's part of their job. But then part of that is like they're kind of speaking a truth to you that if you're willing to hear it, when they talk about your kids are your greatest teacher, I didn't actually believe that, or oh, Buddha says, I was like, yeah, what do these kids know? They don't have driver's license and they haven't earned $1. But what if you really pay attention, it's they're teaching you something about yourself that then if you're willing to hear it, even though it is very uncomfortable, it takes you through the next parts of your life to be a different and make possibly better version of yourself. So first it's initially a slap by them, and then hopefully it's a willingness to practice by you.
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.